The winter of
Stay low.
1942 brought
Something's moving
more
out there.
than
Is it
just
them?
snow
I don't know.
to
Everyone
northern
stay
Norway.
quiet.
It brought terror. Anna Peterson stood at her kitchen window, watching German soldiers march through the streets of Tromsø, their boots crunching against the frozen ground. Her hands trembled as she clutched the letter that had arrived that morning. Her husband, Eric, a resistance fighter, was wanted by the Gestapo. The knock on the door came 3 hours later. It wasn't gentle. Anna Peterson. The voice was sharp, German-accented. Open immediately. But Anna wasn't there anymore. She had already fled to the back door with her 2 children, 7-year-old Lars and 4-year-old Ingrid, and her elderly mother, Astrid. Eric had prepared them for this moment. He had told her about the cave. If they ever come for us, he had said 6 months earlier, head north to Lingen. There's a cave network in the mountains. I've stocked it with supplies. Wait for me there. Now, as Anna trudged through knee-deep snow with her family, that cave was their only hope for survival. The journey to the Lingen Alps was 50 kilometers of frozen hell. Anna had packed only what they could carry: blankets, dried fish, matches, a compass, and Eric's hunting knife. Little Ingrid whimpered with cold, her lips turning blue despite the layers of wool wrapped around her. They walked through forests so thick the snow lay undisturbed in sheets, through valleys where the wind cut like razor blades, across frozen rivers where every step could mean falling to the ice to certain death. Anna led the way, checking the compass every few minutes, terrified of getting lost in the endless white wilderness. On the first night, they found shelter in an abandoned logging cabin. The roof had partially collapsed, letting in snow, but it was better than being exposed to the elements. Anna lit a small fire, rationing their precious matches. They huddled together, sharing what little warmth they could generate. "Mama, I can't feel my feet," Lars said on the second day. Anna's heart broke, but she couldn't stop. Behind them, she knew the Germans were searching. They had to keep moving. Her mother, Astrid, despite being 72 years old, pushed forward with grim determination. She had survived the Spanish flu, the death of her husband, and the Great Depression. She would not let the Nazis take her family. They traveled at night, hiding during the day in abandoned fishing huts and beneath snow-covered rocks. On the 4th night, they saw it, the mountain range Eric had described, its peaks piercing the sky like frozen daggers. "We're almost there," Anna whispered, though she had no idea if she was right. The cave entrance was hidden behind a waterfall that had frozen solid, creating a wall of ice. Anna remembered Eric's instructions. There would be a narrow passage to the left of the falls. She found it, barely wide enough for them to squeeze through single file. Inside, darkness swallowed them whole. Anna struck a match, and the flame revealed a vast cavern stretching into blackness. And there, stacked against the wall, were Eric's supplies, crates of canned goods, fishing equipment, oil lamps, medical supplies, and thick furs. They had found sanctuary. Now they had to learn to survive in it. The first week was the hardest. The cave was pitch black except for their precious oil lamps, which they had to ration carefully. The temperature inside hovered just above freezing. Cold enough to see their breath, but warm enough to prevent them from freezing to death. Anna established a routine immediately. She knew that without structure, they would lose hope, and hope was all they had. Every morning, she would wake the children and lead them in prayers. Then they would eat a small breakfast, usually canned sardines and hardtack. Afterward, Lars would practice reading by lamplight, while Anna taught Ingrid to sew using scraps of fabric. Astrid became the storyteller. Each evening, she would gather the children close and tell them tales of Norwegian folklore, stories of trolls and hidden folk, of brave Vikings and magical forests. These stories transported them from the cold, dark cave to worlds of adventure and wonder. "Tell us about the brave princess again, Bestemor," Ingrid would beg, using the Norwegian word for grandmother. And Astrid would weave her magic, her voice carrying them away from the darkness. The children would fall asleep to visions of ice palaces and heroic journeys, temporarily forgetting the cold stone beneath them and the gnawing hunger in their bellies. Anna would lie awake long after the others slept, listening to the wind howl outside, wondering if this cave would become their tomb. She thought about Eric constantly. Was he warm? Was he safe? Did he think of them? Some nights, The not knowing was worse than the cold. But fairy tales couldn't feed them forever. By the third week, their food supplies were running low. Anna realized they needed to venture outside to hunt and forage, despite the risk of being spotted. "I'm going fishing," Anna announced one morning. "Mama, no," Lars protested. "What if the Germans find you?" "Then I'll run," Anna said simply. "But we need food, my love." The nearby fjord was frozen, but Anna knew there would be holes where the ice was thinner. She drilled through with Eric's hand auger and dropped a line baited with preserved herring. For 3 hours, she sat in the howling wind, her fingers numb, her nose running. The wind whipped across the ice, stinging her exposed skin. Every few minutes, she would have to stand and stamp her feet to keep the blood flowing. She thought about giving up multiple times. What were the chances of catching anything anyway? But the image of her children's hungry faces kept her there, shivering on that frozen wasteland. She thought about her old life, before the war. She and Eric had owned a small grocery store in Tromsø. Life had been simple, predictable. She had worried about things that seemed laughable now. Whether the roof needed repairing, if they could afford new shoes for children. How she longed for such ordinary concerns. Then she felt it, a tug on the line. She pulled with all her strength, and a massive Arctic cod emerged from the hole, flopping on the ice. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. That night they feasted. Anna cooked the fish over a small fire deep inside the cave, where the smoke would dissipate before reaching the entrance. The children laughed for the first time in weeks, their faces glowing in the firelight. December brought the polar night, weeks when the sun never rose above the horizon. The cave became even darker, if that was possible. Anna marked the days by scratching lines into the cave wall with Eric's knife. One line for each day without him. The psychological toll was immense. Ingrid stopped speaking for nearly 2 weeks. Lars developed a cough that wouldn't go away. Astrid's arthritis flared up so badly she could barely walk. Anna felt herself breaking. One night, after the children were asleep, she allowed herself to cry. Silent tears streamed down her face as she wondered if Eric was even alive, if they would ever leave this frozen tomb, if her children would grow up in darkness. But in the morning, she got up. She had to. They adapted in small ways that made huge differences. Anna discovered that hanging wet clothes near the entrance created ice crystals that could be melted for drinking water, saving fuel. Lars found a section of the cave where the acoustics created echoes, and he would sing there to entertain his sister. Astrid taught the children to knit, and they made mittens and scarves from unraveled wool blankets. On Christmas Eve, Anna used their last bit of sugar to make a tiny cake. They sang carols in whispers, their voices barely audible above the wind howling outside. It was the saddest and most beautiful Christmas any of them had ever experienced. January brought their first real scare. Anna was outside gathering snow to melt when she heard voices, German voices. She dropped to the ground and crawled behind a boulder, her heart pounding so hard she was certain they would hear it. She pressed herself against a frozen rock, trying to make herself as small as possible. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. She couldn't see the entrance to the cave from where she lay. What if they found it? What if they found her children? Every muscle in her body screamed at her to run, to lead them away from the cave, but she forced herself to remain still. Movement would only draw their attention. She had to trust that the frozen waterfall would hide the entrance, that her family would stay quiet inside. 2 Wehrmacht soldiers were skiing past, no more than 30 meters from the cave entrance. They were laughing, completely unaware of the family hiding just beyond the frozen waterfall. This godforsaken country, one of them said in German, nothing but ice and snow. Anna understood German. Her grandmother had been from Bavaria. She held her breath as the soldiers stopped to rest, so close she could see the steam from their breath. "I heard they're still looking for that resistance fighter's family," the other soldier said. "Disappeared without a trace." "They're probably dead in a ditch somewhere," the first one replied. "No one could survive out here." After what felt like hours, the soldiers moved on. Anna waited another 30 minutes before scrambling back to the cave, her legs shaking so badly she could barely walk. "We can't make fires anymore," she told her mother that night. "Not even deep in the cave. If they're patrolling nearby, they might smell the smoke." From that day forward, they ate only cold food. The cave became even more unbearable. When the first rays of sun penetrated the cave entrance in late March, it felt like a miracle. The children rushed to the light like flowers seeking warmth, their pale faces tilting upward. Anna ventured outside and couldn't believe what she saw. The world had come alive. Birds were returning, singing in the sparse trees. The waterfall had begun to thaw, its music replacing the eerie silence of winter. Green shoots pushed through the melting snow. She stood there for a long moment, breathing in the fresh air, feeling the weak sunlight on her face. It felt like being reborn. The children joined her, and for the first time in months, they played outside. Lars and Ingrid ran to the melting snow, their laughter echoing across the valley. Astrid sat on a rock, her face tilted toward the sun, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "I thought I would never feel warmth again," the old woman whispered. Anna hugged her mother tightly. They had survived the impossible, but their ordeal wasn't over yet. But with spring came a terrible realization. Lars had grown thin, too thin. His cough had worsened, and now he was spitting up blood. Tuberculosis. Anna recognized the symptoms. Her own father had died of it. "He needs a doctor," Astrid said quietly. "Anna, he needs proper medicine." Anna faced an impossible choice: risk capture by seeking help or watch her son die in the cave. She made her decision quickly. "I'm going to the village," she announced. "There's a doctor there who might help us." He was a friend of Eric's. "They'll arrest you," her mother warned. "Then they arrest me. I won't let my son die." The next morning, Anna hiked 15 kilometers to the nearest village. She waited until nightfall, then approached the doctor's house through the back garden. She knocked softly on his window. The doctor, Dr. Olson, nearly fainted when he saw her. "Anna Peterson, everyone thinks you're dead." "I need antibiotics," she said urgently. "My son is dying." Dr. Olson looked around nervously, then pulled her inside. "The Germans have checkpoints everywhere. How did you even get here?" She told him everything. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Anna, I have news," he said finally, "about Eric." Her world stopped. "He's alive," Dr. Olson said quickly, seeing the terror in her eyes. "He escaped to Sweden 3 months ago. He's been trying to get word to you, but he had no idea where you were." Anna's knees buckled. "Alive. Eric was alive." "There's more," the doctor continued. "The resistance has been planning something. In 2 weeks, they're organizing an escape route to Sweden through the mountains. They're taking refugees, families mostly. If you can make it to the rendezvous point, they'll get you out." He gave her the antibiotics for Lars. Precious streptomycin he had been saving for emergencies, along with food, warmer clothes, and a map showing the escape route. Anna made the journey back to the cave in record time. She burst through the entrance, startling everyone awake. "Papa's alive," she shouted. "And we're leaving." The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation and medical care. Lars responded to the antibiotics almost immediately. His fever broke, and color returned to his cheeks. They rationed their remaining supplies, saving everything they would need for the journey to Sweden. On the appointed night, they left the cave for the last time. Anna paused at the entrance, looking back at the place that had been their prison and their salvation for 5 months. She whispered a prayer of thanks, then turned toward the future. The rendezvous point was an abandoned reindeer herder's cabin 40 kilometers away. When they arrived, exhausted but determined, they found 30 other refugees waiting, men, women, and children, all fleeing the Nazi occupation. The resistance guides led them through mountain passes that seemed impossible to cross. They traveled in darkness and silence, with children's mouths stuffed with cloth to muffle any cries. German patrols were everywhere, their searchlights sweeping the valleys below. On the 3rd night of the journey, they crossed the Swedish border. Anna collapsed in the snow, weeping with relief. They were free. The refugee camp in northern Sweden was crowded and chaotic, but it was paradise compared to the cave. They had beds, hot food, and most importantly, safety. Anna was registering at the camp administration when she heard a voice behind her. "Anna!" She turned slowly, afraid to believe it. And there he was, thinner, with a scar across his cheek, but alive. Eric. They ran to each other, colliding in an embrace that seemed to shake the entire world. Lars and Ingrid screamed with joy, rushing to their father. Even Astrid wept openly. That night, reunited at last, the Peterson family sat together in a small barracks room. Eric held his children close while Anna told him everything. The escape, the cave, the long winter, the near starvation, the fear. "I knew you would find the cave," Eric said quietly. "I knew you would survive. You're the strongest person I've ever known." "We all survived," Anna corrected him. Together. The Peterson family remained in Sweden until the war ended in 1945. They returned to Norway to find their home in Tromsø had been destroyed by retreating German forces. But they rebuilt. Eric became a teacher. Anna opened a small bakery. And the children grew up strong and healthy. Lars lived to be 87 years old. And until his death, he would tell anyone who would listen about the winter his mother saved his life. He became a doctor, inspired by the kindness of Dr. Olsen. Inger became a teacher like her father, specializing in helping traumatized children. She married a fellow survivor and had 4 children of her own. Astrid lived another 15 years, spending her days in a sunny garden, far from the cold and darkness of that terrible winter. In 1983, Anna was invited to speak at a university in Oslo about her experiences. She was 71 years old by then, but her memory of those 5 months in the cave was crystal clear. "People ask me how we survived," she told the audience. "They want to know about the cold, the hunger, the fear, but that's not the real question. The real question is, what kept us human in the darkness?" She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "It was love. Love for my children, for my mother, for my husband who I believed I would never see again. Love gave me strength when I had none. It gave me hope when there was no reason for hope. It kept us alive when everything else wanted us dead." Anna Peterson died in 1995, surrounded by her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Her story became part of Norway's oral history, passed down through generations as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The cave in the Lingen Alps still exists. Locals sometimes leave flowers at the entrance in memory of the family, who survived 5 months in its frozen embrace. On the wall, scratched by Eric's knife, you can still see the marks Anna made, 153 lines, one for each day in the darkness. And if you listen carefully on winter nights, some say you can hear the echo of children's laughter bouncing off the stone walls, a reminder that even in the darkest places, hope and love can survive. Thank you for reading this incredible true story of survival. If you found it moving, please like and subscribe for more amazing tales of courage, survival, and the indomitable human spirit. What would you have done in Anna's situation? Could you survive 5 months in complete darkness with your family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, remember, the greatest survival tool is the human spirit.